What's up, guys? This is Adi again with Gate 7 International. Another deep dive in quick succession. This is definitely not going to be the last one of these. We got a couple more, I am sure of it, that will be coming up in August. But this time we are going to be reviewing in the scouting report our new winger, Kristoffer Velde, Norwegian winger from Lech Poznan. So we're excited to talk about him. But before we do, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you are tuning in, this is your first scouting report, check out the content that we have. Every engagement helps us continue to grow the channel. You can also consider joining us on Patreon, where you can get early access to the scouting reports. As you guys know, these scouting reports go live when the players are announced. So you can listen to them a little bit earlier if you join the Patreon group. You can visit that at www.patreon.com/gate7international. Now, let's continue. We're going to talk about the bright new winger that we're getting from Lech Poznan in the Polish league, Norwegian Kristoffer Velde, right-footed winger, can play on both the left and the right. 5'10", 179 centimeters, weighing in at about 65 kilograms, which is 143 pounds for you guys, both for the metric and the US standard. So our new Norwegian winger has been on the radar of the club for a couple of weeks now, actually. The player moved to Polish club Lech Poznan from Norway for 1.1 million euros. That was 2.5 years ago in January of 2022. Now, he won the title in that first few months when he joined Lech Poznan from Norway. And this past season, he was actually voted as the player of the season. So he usually plays on that left side, but he's also spent some time playing on the right. Pretty tricky ball carrier if we're talking about his profile. Not necessarily great agility, but he's got some skill moves in his arsenal that, when combined with his decent acceleration and overall top speed, it can make him create some pretty dangerous situations. He's got some solid technical ability, a decent center of gravity, and a touch that can sometimes get a little bit ahead of him, but overall it's pretty close. Just like in the previous scouting reports, we are going to evaluate this player based on the system that we have seen from Jose Luis Mendilibar and what we are going to expect from that system. So we're really going to evaluate based on what we think the fit will be with Jose Luis Mendilibar and the high-pressure system that we all know he likes to employ and that we are going to see, which we've already seen in a couple of friendlies that we've already gotten a chance to watch so far this season. So without further ado, let's get into the analysis. Let's start talking about Kristoffer Velde. So as always, we're going to start with some goal threat, goal creation data. And here's the percentile chart where you can see kind of where he ranked in the Polish league in various categories. We always start with goal creation. And every season, Velde has had or any season where he's played at least 1,000 minutes, he has garnered in the last 5 years close to or more than 20 goal contributions anytime he plays 1,000 minutes or more. Always has more goals than assists. And the goals almost always come in open play when he's playing on that left wing. I watched almost 40 goals that he scored. And outside of just a handful of penalties that he took, everything was in open play. The vast majority also came off of fast breaks, whether they were counters or fast transitions when the player had space in front of him. In these cases, there were a couple of different situations where he scored. Most of them in the transition or the counter. Maybe a player would have the ball running down the opposite side of the field and play the ball across to him, and he would either finish it first time, cut inside on a defender, and then score. The second situation would come if he was released with space and had a 1v1 with a defender. He would usually just kind of cut inside and unleash a really powerful right-footed shot from the left side. On more than a few occasions, he would take a shot from the edge of the penalty box on that left side. He has a sweet spot there, right up top in that upper left side of the penalty area where he has just remarkable accuracy. A couple of goals where he was involved in some one-touch pass and move with a lot of defensive bodies in the penalty area, but it was only two situations like that I saw. Outside of the goals, shot opportunities in general just came from these same situations, usually in open play. Almost never anything from set pieces. And the vast majority of his overall shot opportunities are cut-ins from the right side, or sorry, cut-ins from the left to the right, and then a shot from his sweet spot at the top of the penalty box or on the left, deeper inside the penalty area. So when he makes and times his runs, if he's further forward than the striker, he'll run inside the penalty area to either receive a cross or a ball from a teammate that's running on the opposite end. But if he's not the furthest person forward, he'll run closer to the top of the penalty area for rebounds in many of these scenarios. And his ability to keep so many shots on target is really impressive. I mean, over 40% shots on target, which is pretty solid, all things considers. And he also hit the post a fair bit. So anytime you hit the post, that counts as an off-target shot. So that lowers his on-target percentage. So just bear that in mind. He's a very nice threat to have in these situations. And before I move on to assist creation and talk about how he creates opportunities for his teammates, I do want to kind of say one concern I have regarding the scoring context that I just discussed for you guys. So much of these goals, these great opportunities, came from very specific moments, the types I outlined for you, these situations. And the commonality of those situations is that in transition or on the counter, whatever the case was, he had space in front of him when receiving the ball. So face value, I look at this and I worry that in Greece, especially in Greece, when we play against teams with a lower block, more bodies behind the ball, it'll stifle his goal production. And as I mentioned earlier, I really only saw a handful of instances against more bodies that were behind the ball. And there were just only a few chances where I saw pass and move and he got a good opportunity. A lot of the instances ended up block shots or passing back. So looking at this, I wonder if he has the capacity to maintain long-term production, at least in Greece, with some of these deeper lying teams. Now, as far as assist creation goes, it was the same for the goals and the shots. I mean, everything comes from open play with him. He does nothing off of set pieces. All of his assists came from open play, just like his goal creations. And again, the same context, transition, space in front of him, plays a nice ball inside at the penalty area or just across the field. A handful of assists came from the left side, but over 90% of his assists come from the right side of the field or when he was playing on the right side of the field. So while his goal scoring volume is higher, his assist volume, as you can see on the chart, is also top tier in the Polish league. He sits above that 80th percentile. And the assist came in the form of crosses, of which he's pretty accurate, 35.5% crossing accuracy, which is solid. And usually from the outside of the penalty box too. He's feeding those balls in from those areas. But if he's not crossing from the outside, he's usually running into the penalty area, tries to draw a defender, and then when he does draw the defender, plays the ball to a teammate that's running into the box. He also had a handful, this was on the left side of the field now, a handful of really, really lovely through balls to cut the defense to his teammates. And these came from, as I said, the left side. He would hit the ball, very cheeky hit with the outside of his right foot, and just spin the ball like just around the front of the defender. I mean, it was an absolute lovely thing to watch. I watched a couple of them multiple times because it was just so absurd. I'm telling you guys, if we see service like that in the Gaiskaki, I mean, you guys are gonna go nuts. it very, very, very cool to see from him, and I wonder if he's gonna replicate that in Greece. Other shot opportunities that he had, or shot assist opportunities, I should say, came from one other scenario, which surprisingly did not lead to many more goal contributions. And that was really due to his teammates' wastefulness, but I digress. These would occur whether he played on the right or the left wing. And basically what he would do is he would come from the wide area, cut deep inside the middle. We're talking he's running deep inside the middle of the park. And usually he would run all the way until he drew an extra defender to him. And then as his teammate was making a run down the line where the space was left from the defender following in, he would lay the ball off. And again, as I mentioned, many of these shot opportunities came in transition when he had space in front of him. Although in the context of his runs inside the midfield, this was the situation which I saw that was probably the most relatable to Greece when there's numbers behind the ball. So I could see him have success with these types of situations where he's just getting the ball running in, trying to pull a defender out from a low block. And but the caveat to that is the success will only come if an extra defender hastily commits forward. So again, in Greece, I can see him having more success in this regard, but I still do share the concern that his open play viability is going to be negatively impacted. In Europe, I see plenty of context for success with how he operates because, we'll be playing teams that'll play us more openly, and we'll have more situations like what I spoke about before, where it's bigger chance of him having um, goal success. But in Greece, we're not worried per se, but don't be surprised if there's a little bit more struggles. Next, we're going to talk about his build-up and possession characteristics. So, in possession, Kristoffer Velde acts much more like an outlet. He's not a central figure in build-up, not really necessarily a surprise because he's a winger, and he prefers to be running down the line to receive passes. It's not that uncommon, though, to see him drop deeper to help move the ball, but his preference is definitely to line up for a give and go, whether it's inside or whether it's, playing the ball inside just so he can go outside to get the ball in stride. I did see some possessions where he would move inside, switch with the midfielder or the striker in an alternating run, but it didn't occur that often. Given what we've seen from how Jose Luis Mendilibar functions and how the wingers function, this more or less kind of fits into the profile of what he wants. I mean, last season we saw Costas Fortunis, who we know was a guy that always drifted center. He's a 10, and he would get involved in build up directly. He would be kind of running things. And as he's drifting central, Daniel Podence would kind of stay wide and do his thing out there. I mean, but the creative freedom in general in the Mendilibar system is given to those players on the wings, whether it's Fortunis that was going inside or Daniel Podence doing what Daniel Podence would do best. The creative freedom is given to the wingers in this system. So if Kristoffer Velde is going to act like an outlet to get forward quickly, that's not going to be something too surprising. What will continue to be the question, even as we're talking about the possession game and how Veld operates with respect to our transition and how we get forward, is how he will react in these situations in the Mendilibar system with compact midfields or low blocks. And how that will really determine whether or not he has success at this club. I mean, in build-up possessions in Poland, I saw him turning, back passing, or losing the ball most of the time if he encountered a lot of people behind the ball. I think Olympiacos at this stage is, as a unit, more mobile than the team that Lech Poznan had. So I do see more activity, I should say, in more in terms of the pass and move, which would be more opportunities for him to get the ball and free himself going forward. And maybe it allows him to stay more wide and get these runs into space to stretch the field. I did also see him track back to receive the ball and play it centrally, but he always ends up going back to run wide. So all signs point to an outlet in open play. And once he gets the ball in stride and in space, he'll carry the ball forward. And you can imagine there's probably some situations where he'll carry the ball too much. Maybe it impacts possession. And I did see this in Poland. I did see situations like this. Some of you complained about this on social media as well. Some of you that are more familiar with the Polish league. But I think, honestly, under Mendilibar, this won't be as much of an issue. He Mendilibar has gotten buy-in from every player. So I don't see why Veld would be an exception. I think under Mendilibar, we'll see a lot less of these situations where he's holding the ball less and he's operating more within the unit. As far as his pass accuracy goes, it's well above average. I mean, really, the only passes that he's misplacing are the long passes in the final third, his crosses, which are, obviously those are passes that aren't always going to be completed, especially when your best ones or your best players or most accurate players are in the 30 to 40 percentile. So those are situations where he's maybe losing the ball. Um, where I saw him lose the ball more, forget passing and distribution, it was when he's carrying the ball too long. His accuracy in one touch pass and move is pretty good, and his range on his passes is pretty solid as well. Again, I never saw too many cheap giveaways during the distribution. It was really when in the situations where he was just holding the ball maybe a little too long. Moving on to the defensive attributes, when it comes to offensive players or wingers, like wingers and forwards, we're not looking for guys that are amazing ball winners. What we care about here is that he tracks back and he's doing his work in the press. So I saw plenty of comments on Polish social media. I saw plenty of comments from some of our fans that follow Polish soccer, Polish football, I should say, and basically saying that he doesn't track back and doesn't do the defensive work. And in the tape I watched, I did notice that he had a tendency to kind of stay forward and maybe not always be back in the defensive third to assist in the defensive duties. But I'm not sure if it was kind of player preference, laziness, or instruction because I never really saw him walking that much. And I'll be honest, even though Lech Poznan does not employ a high press like we do, I saw him running at the ball at the forefront of the press on many occasions. Didn't matter what time of the match it was. So, and I saw him tracking back. Also, I saw him tracking back, winning the ball, getting the ball forward. So, the way I see this is if Jose Luis Mendilibar could get Costas Fortunis to stay in the team shape, especially on the press, do the defensive work he's supposed to do, if he could get that done with Fortunis, I really find it hard to believe that Kristoffer Veld would be any different. And besides that fact, I mean, if we're going along this logic, Veld has more mobility than Costas Fortunis did. So, and he had more mobility in the press for a team that doesn't have a very intense press. So, again, uh, I'll admit I can't determine if him staying further up the pitch is a defensive situational preference for him or instruction, but uh, it's not something I'm really worried about at this stage. Looking at Veld's aerial threat, he's really not an incredible aerial threat. He was hardly involved in anything on the defensive side of things. But, he does actually have a decent vertical, and that's something that you see in his offensive, part of the game when he's trying to connect with crosses. So he does have a pretty good vertical, but on the defensive side of things, he very rarely would see situations where he was needed or where he would have to come up to try and win the ball. Um, I'm going to issue a small disclaimer before I start talking about this radar plot and the comparison to a certain player, Daniel Podence. And I just want to be very clear about what we're going for with this radar comparison, because when we shared this chart on social media, there were people that assumed we were talking about a Podence replacement, and we're not. The sole purpose of the radar plots is to compare outputs of players. And by that I mean like results, what the players are doing. So the level of goals, the level of assists compared to each other, those pure numbers are the comparison points that we're looking at in the data. And then after we see the comparison of these data points, we discuss the differences in how they're achieved. That's the goal with this. And I'm going to start the analysis off by saying that it's really quite incredible that the radar plots are very similar in output. You can see here Velt's goal contributions on a whole, his offensive production by the numbers, by the direct output, is very similar to Podence. So say what you want about the Polish league versus the Greek league. We know how important Podence was to this team, and we know how important the production he had and the goal contributions he had was to this team. So the fact that Velde's output mirrors this in Poland is promising. Even if he cannot do exactly what he did in Poland, in Greece, as long as he has close to that contribution, it's pretty remarkable. I'm not expecting him to have the same level of contribution as Podence, nor am I expecting him to have remotely the same level of impact. The profiles are different. Podence is a more complete player. He gets involved in build-up, he stretches the field, he can make something from nothing, and he has an incredibly low center of gravity. Velde's tape is a little bit more, how would we say, linear. And by that I mean that the context for Velde's success is very clear and specific. Get him in transition with space, allow him the opportunity to drift central, let him be able to run onto a defender. The profiles of the players are just very different. But the difference in profile is exactly what we need to create a balanced and effective attack moving forward. So maybe I should put it this way. Podence is in a more advanced stage of his career and professional development. He's 28 years old, and the caliber of player he is shouldn't surprise any of you to hear me say it, is just more complete. He's further along. Velde is 24 years old, and he has plenty of room for him improvement. I do expect him to grow here. I don't necessarily think he'll ever get to the point where he has a higher value proposition than Podence. I'm just making a point that there's value in the production that he has. We loved what we got from Podence. So if we see something relatively similar in Velde, I mean, we're going to be ecstatic in that regard. So let's talk about the verdict. Let's talk about the outlook overall on this player. Now that we've looked at the data, now that we've kind of talked about the differences in profile from him and probably the best winger we had on the team last season in Podence, my verdict on the player is nuanced for a couple of reasons. First, he's quite an expensive player for Olympiacos. I mean, the reported fee was 3.6 million euros plus bonuses, which could take it over 5 million. It's not cheap. And therein, in that expensive fee, lies the risk. The second thing is the context for the player's success is nuanced as well. As I mentioned previously with possession, with the goals that he scored, the assists, they all came in open play and always came in transition with space in front of him. I mean, or if he was able to take on a defender and beat them. And while I see context for success in Europe, I worry that teams with the low block could negatively impact his production. On top of it, I don't think this player can make something from nothing, not in the way that Fortunis or Daniel Podence can. So while I think he's a useful player, I just don't see a Fortunis or a Podence that can pull magic out of a scenario that was, otherwise something where you expected nothing. He's a very useful player. and he will be a very helpful tool on the wing. And he can give us something different, whether he's playing on the left or the right side. On the left side, you have a goal machine. On the right side, you have a guy that can feed plenty of service into the penalty area for his teammates. But that's the extent of what we're getting from him, if you get my meaning. The extent of what I see from this player is very useful in certain situations, and that's kind of where it will be. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That is a function we need. And if you can do that function and produce on a regularly consistent basis, that is a win. Value for Euro here, I expect us to get double-digit goal contributions from him. And again, I am concerned with that 3.6 million price tag. If the bonuses, if we do end up paying them over 5 million with the bonuses, that probably means the player would have done something, because these are performance-related bonuses. So all in all, with the combined risk of the transfer fee, I'm still giving this transfer a thumbs up. I see value in the context for the success of the player. I see the value that context provides, even if I do think we paid a premium for it. The player is not going to replicate the goal contributions of Kostas Fortounis last season. Don't expect that. Or even Podence. I don't think he'll even mirror what Podence did, which was close to 30 goal contributions. But he will represent a very solid option that is more mobile than our previous captain, Kostas Fortounis. At the very least, there is a future value here to cash in on, especially if he has 1 or 2 decent seasons. If he can continue a streak also of close to 20 goal contributions, or maybe even a little bit more, then we're really happy. So I hope you guys enjoyed the scouting report. I hope that you were able to learn a little bit more about the Norwegian winger we just signed, Kristoffer Velde. I'm excited about this player. I'll say that. Even though I have a couple of misgivings, of which I've shared, this player joining along the likes of a returning Horta, and by the grace of God, if we can get Danny Podence back, I mean, we will have ourselves a really, really potent offense. Look at the friendlies. You see that there's a system. We have an identity. And even with an incomplete team with pieces missing, I mean, we look good. We're moving the ball well. We're pressing well. I mean, we get these pieces in, and we're a force to be reckoned with. So I hope you guys enjoyed the scouting report. I hope that it was valuable for you. I hope now, hopefully, you get an idea of what you can expect from Velde. And if you guys have any questions, you know where to reach me. You can DM me on socials at Aristides06. You can DM me also directly on Gate 7 International. In DMs, posts, whatever you prefer. More deep dives are coming. More scouting reports are coming. I'm sure of it. And we've got more shows coming up. It's going to be a great season and a very exciting one too. So thank you guys for listening. This is Gate 7 International, by the fans, for the fans, and we'll see you next time.